Well, a year ago, I was giving Darren a hard time because he bought this field, he paid pretty good money for it, and then we did some soil testing and found out there was nothing out there for fertility. I mean, in fact, when we sent the sample into the lab called us and they said, "This is a joke, right? You're not serious."
Okay, hold on, Brent. You're talking like we thought this was a surprise. This is ground that we know has been cash rented for 25 or 30 years with a variety of different farm operations.
Still,
It was
it
one of
was
those
down to
fields where
nothing.
yeah, I know, but it was one of those fields where, you know, the next guy'd come along, pay a little bit more, and there was no farmer-owned ground for many, many years here. So it's a piece of ground that kind of got run down a little bit. Nobody threw any extra fertilizer out because they knew they probably weren't going to have it next year.
Okay, so what did you do this year to try to get some yield?
All right, so a couple of the problems that we had were, one, the fertility was very low. The phosphorus was as low as 1 part per million. I'm pretty sure the lab just put 1 on the soil test because they don't send zeros out. They wanted to make me feel like I had something out there, I think. The other thing would be the organic matter levels.
Yeah, the organic matter in some areas was a 1.5%. Just terrible. A lot of our fields now, we've got up to 4, 5, some even 6% organic matter. That's great because you can hold a lot more water, you can hold more nutrients. You just have so much better crop when you have a lot more organic matter. We didn't have that. So over time, we got to try to build that organic matter level up as well.
Well, another thing too, and one of the reasons that organic matter level is low is it's some hilly ground, kind of like the ground that we're standing on here. This isn't the particular field that we're talking about, but it is hilly ground that's similar to that. And on this hilly ground, erosion is such a big concern. We talked about wind erosion in our farm basics, but the water erosion is a really big deal. Think about it over decades. When this ground is tilled, if you're not properly managing it, you're going to have some of that topsoil wash off the hills and down into the valleys, and that's certainly what's happened on the blank slate.
So basically here's the strategy. Continuous corn for probably 20 years, reduce the tillage, then we'll be able to build up the organic matter, hopefully build up plant nutrients in the soil as well over time very slowly. Let's talk about the fertility program you used this year.
Well, the fertility is a big thing because if I don't have anything to start with, I've got to put out there what I need, and it has to be in a highly available form that my crop can take up most of it. Now, if I'm broadcasting dry P and K and I'm just putting it out, just putting out straight MAP or DAP, something like that, or potash, maybe 25% of that gets into my crop that first year. This is a real big concern for me because if I don't have much organic matter, I don't have much fertility, I got to get that fertility in there. So I wanted to go with liquid fertilizer. I ended up using ProGerminator and SureK. They're very highly available products. I put them right in the furrow at planting time to make sure that my crop had some nutrition all the way up. And it was kind of interesting because we did that liquid fertilizer in the furrow. We also did some at side dress time in different spots in the field just to see if we needed more, if we were getting enough with that in-furrow treatment. And really it appears that we got enough with that in-furrow treatment. We didn't need a whole bunch extra.
Well, the reason why is because you only ended up with 150 bushel corn.
Only? What are you talking about? This particular piece of ground, if this had ever had 150 bushel corn, I would absolutely be shocked. There is no way this ground was over 100 or 120 bushel corn in the past.
And in our area, it was a bad year for corn on our farm. We were actually down in terms of corn yield. I wasn't expecting that. And granted, we didn't have corn on our best ground this year or anything, but we were down to probably 170, maybe 175 bushel average. I was really hoping for 200. I was expecting 200. We didn't get that, but we saw that all around the country. And part of it was just because of the way the weather went this year. We had an overabundance of rain too many times, and Darren's ground has no tile in it or anything like that. Sure, it's got pretty good natural drainage, but there were a couple spots out there. They got significantly hurt because there was too much moisture sitting there.
Well, I guess, a few things with that particular piece of ground. We were playing around with planting population a little bit. I believe our final stand was around 26,000, which is a little bit light for our farm. Not really light, but a little bit. So that was one of the factors, and just the situation of a 60-acre farm. This is just a 60-acre field. And you think about across your whole farm, if you've got, a few spots here and there that are kind of some poor areas, they don't really drag your yield down too much. But when you've got about 20 or 30 acres of junk out of 60 acres, it's pretty tough to overcome it because we had some 200 bushel corn in parts of that field. It's just there weren't enough of those parts.
Okay, so you've gone through one season with this ground, what's your plan for next year in terms of what are you going to change? I mean, we already know it's going to be continuous corn. We know it's going to be reduced tillage, but what are you going to do different next year?
Well, I guess I'm going to start working on more of the biological side of things. I've got a couple of biological products that we've been using across our farm, like Quick Grits, for example, that we're going to be using on the whole farm. I'm also going to continue my fertility work. I'm going to be looking at Pro Germinator and Sure-K again at various rates. So for the most part, I'm going to start jacking up my yield estimations of what I think I'm going to do, and then just continue, doing as minimal tillage as I possibly can. And we're going to put that fertilizer right in the furrow again.
Well, the other thing that I think would help his ground quite a bit is if he could get a little bit of manure on it. We've got manure on a lot of our ground. The problem with this particular field is it's about 6 miles from our home farm, so we just can't run a hose to put liquid manure 6 miles away.
Well, that would be nice, but maybe I need to put a hog unit up on the end of my farm or something. I'm sure my neighbors would like that over there. I've got some neighbors just right around that particular field.
Well, one thing Darren did do a good job on with this blank slate field was weed control, like our Weed of the Week. Can you identify this week's weed?